So
Sorry, I'm doing delicious iced coffee.
Alex and I are both going to be having the tinkling of ice cubes in our podcast recording today.
Well, that's why I'm trying to chug it now.
Because once a week this summer, the Communitech Hub is offering free iced coffee.
I missed it the last time, and I was really upset.
It's really good. I'm a 1 coffee a day person, but I make the exception for the iced coffees
That's
here.
good.
Okay. Do you want to do your little intro?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech About Town, brought to you by Communitech. I am Alex Kinsella.
I'm Sasha Bell.
Today we're in the studio
with Rosie Del Campo, who is a ex-CTV news anchor legend in Kitchener, but it now works for Communitech and helps founders and startups and scale-ups and with their internal and external communications and guides us, Communitech, to sound like we are grown-ups who know what we're doing.
It's an interesting bit because she obviously came from one side. There's two sides of PR.
Right.
Because there's the...
Tell me. You used to work in PR.
Yeah, so
Please,
I was on the side that, you're a company, you work for a company and you're trying to get press coverage. And then I also worked in PR where companies were trying to, or outlets were trying to get news from me. Not me personally, but like the company.
You are also a journalist.
I'm also a journalist, and then
you're on the other side.
Yeah, so I do. It's so weird because I get pitches all the time from companies. Hey, can you cover this for whatever outlet? And then I'm also pitching to news outlets for, hey, I got this company that you should do a story on. So it's super weird. And I guess
you guys will have a lot to say to each other. I'm going to just absorb.
All my PR stuff came back as I was writing the show notes for this, and we'll talk about it in the episode. But yeah, there's some things that I live by that I got really great PR training when I worked at RIM, BlackBerry. And one of the lessons was that an interview is never time for original thought. I'm going to bring this up with Rosie when she comes in too. And it's basically just that. Like,
go in with your canned.
If you're well, it's not even canned though, but like if you're like, let's say you're a founder of a startup and you know what your mission is and you know who your customers are and you know what you want to talk to the journalist about. That's what you talk about. Like you've set up your 2 or 3 points. This is the message. This is what you want to get across. The thing you want to have in the article, right? So you do that. I've seen so many founders or executives or whoever, like anytime you're talking, right? Like you start vamping and you're like, oh, this actually I could talk about this. Don't ever do that. Like this is what you've gone in with. And so if you're a kid and you're, let's say, you're doing a presentation in class. It's the prep work. Like you've prepped for the presentation. Yeah. You know what you're going to say. That's what you do. If something comes to you in the middle of your presentation, it's probably not the best time to be like, oh, and also XYZ, right? Because then you're going to screw up your thing. You're going to screw up your pacing.
So it's like, I had in grade 3 or the 3rd grade, I had a teacher say to me, Sasha, you have to think before you speak. And I don't know, it's just like one of those weird core memories as a kid. And I remember at the time thinking like, oh, like it's just such a simple thing that a grown-up just had to tell me. Yeah. Just like give it some thought.
Yeah.
Which is helpful for me because I am a talker.
Yeah. It is. It can be challenging to do, especially because no one likes silence. Right. And that's another one, right? Of just like
totally
understanding
sit in the discomfort of silence. Yeah. Man, that's sort of off topic. Anyway, should we bring Rosie in?
Let's bring Rosie in.
Okay. Rosie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Rosie Del Campo, you are head of communications at Communitech, but the way that I've described you is you're a local legend in the news anchor space.
Oh my goodness, that's a bit of a stretch.
I know you would hate that.
No, I'm just very humbled and I'm very honored to be here in the studio with you at Communitech. Communitech is a legendary place in this community, and I'm really privileged. I've had so many amazing opportunities over the past 15 years working in media and now in communication, so I'm thrilled to be here.
And you're here to tell us a little bit about yourself, but also here to help, all companies, but Communitech specifically serves companies in the tech space, but give them some pro tips on how to pitch their stories to media.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're going to talk about other stuff too.
Yeah, there's so many amazing founders, entrepreneurs doing incredible work in our community and beyond. They're busy making all of that good stuff that they're working on. So a lot of times, these entrepreneurs don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to think about, okay, how can I drive visibility of what I'm doing? How can I put myself out there? Maybe they've been thinking about putting themselves out there, but they don't know where to start. So that's where we hopefully come in, and we can provide them with those tips and resources to help them get their feet wet and get comfortable in that space of talking about what they're doing and spreading their news to the world.
Yep.
Well, and that's an interesting, like spreading news to the world. So I think one of the questions that we get all the time, and I get and Communitech gets, is what makes a good story, right? Because a lot of times I'll get a pitch and it's like, oh, we just closed a sale. I'm like, it's not really like big news that you closed a sale. Like a new product launch could be if there was a sale, right? Like sometimes it's like a 2 or 3 things that go together to make a really good story. Kind of how do you kind of, when you talk to founders, when you talk to people, entrepreneurs, about what makes a good story, like what for you, what does make a good story?
Right. And that's a great point, Alex. And I know you have seen it all because of all of the work that you've done, in journalism as well and storytelling. And it is really subjective. There is no magic formula, I would say, at the end of the day, in terms of what's going to make a journalist pick up your pitch or run with your story. There just isn't. But what could help are a few things to consider when you are pitching a story or when you are looking to identify a story within your business or looking to showcase your expertise. So number one, when I worked in journalism, I always looked for a human-centric narrative. Well, you could say, okay, everybody has a human story. There's a reason why a founder created this company. Okay, what is it? Why would that matter to somebody reading or watching that story? Great, you have a product launch, but what does that have to do with what's happening in the industry right now? Can you tie your news to a bigger issue? What is the big picture? What is happening? Is there a current news event that's happening that you could tie your business to? So for example, if you work in cybersecurity, was there just a major cybersecurity incident or a cyber attack? And is there something that you do that could help another company avoid a similar situation? So you have to sort of find a way to have those stories ready to go, but also keep an eye and have a pulse on what's happening in the world and in the news and in your industry and be ready to pounce. So agility is key. Reading the news every day is key, because how can you try to be in the news if you don't know what is happening in the news or if you don't keep up with the news? So, and again, that's why a lot of people enlist the support of PR help or marketing help. So that's where I would start. I would say try to find a human-centric narrative. Why would this matter to anyone at home or in your industry? And can you tie it to a bigger issue? What is the news hook? What is a journalist going to care about? And journalists, what they care about is what they think the audience at home is thinking about or caring about and what they're motivated by. So what are we motivated by as humans? Well, I care about my safety. I care about my health. I care about my money, especially with the cost of living. I care about my community, where I live. And there's also an element of curiosity. So those are the 5 main things that I would focus on when I'm coming up with a pitch.
I wish I had something to pitch now. I go use this right now. I need a story.
How do you feel about that as a journalist and a PR person?
Keeping up with the news. I mean, I think it's the most, when everybody asks me, like, how do you get started in writing? I'm like, well, you got to read, right? That's just it. Like, if you don't read, and it's the same thing for this is that, which is, you can't pitch a story if you don't know what's happening in the news. And following, do you follow do you recommend like following journalists you want to have covered you?
100%, because then when you're pitching to that journalist, you'll have more of a personal touch to your pitch, because you're showing them, hey, I've been following your work and I actually really like it, or I'm interested in what you're talking about and I actually digest it. So that would go a long way. I do want to point out one disappointing / alarming statistic right now, that apparently there are 6 PR people for every journalist in North America. So not what we want to hear right now, but that's because the media landscape is changing so much.
What was it like 5 years ago? What was the ratio?
probably half that much, I would say, but
Wow.
probably in the past decade. And we're seeing news being consumed in a different way.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have cable anymore. A lot of people are getting their news online on social media. We're seeing some smaller publications are just vanishing altogether. So a lot of changes. So it's harder than ever to get those stories out there. So I do encourage founders to continue telling your own stories on your own channels so you can actually have that story still out there with all the context that you want to attach to that story. But still try to build those relationships by, again, reading the news. It is a slow burn though, right, Alex? Like you really, it takes time.
A blog page on your company website helps a lot with SEO as well.
Definitely.
We love the SEO.
We gotta always keep it in mind.
I talk about it way too much. I think my kids actually know what that means.
Of course they would know.
Point. Yeah, it's terrible. The you talk about like the changing landscape, and obviously like publications have disappeared, and it's not anywhere near what it used to be. And a lot of, especially in tech, like a lot of tech journalists have gone the independent route, Substack, or I forget what the other platforms are.
I love Casey Newton's
Casey
Substack.
Newton's, yeah.
So
Actually,
good.
I pay for it. Shout out Casey
Good for
Newton
you.
that I pay for it.
Patreon?
No, he had whatever platform he moved from Substack, and I can't remember
Oh yeah,
what it's
he
called
moved
now.
from Substack to something else. Right.
Yeah, that's a good one. But do you, like, in terms of that, like people are paying for news now, or paying to follow the journalists and get content from the journalists that they want to follow.
Yeah.
How does that kind of change for founders then? Because I mean, a lot of startups have limited budgets, and subscribing to 15 different Substacks.
That's true. That's so true. Like I pay for, and this is going to be very telling of my political leanings, but NPR, KUOW, Seattle's NPR station. I pay for Vox and I pay for New York Times. But that's like it. Then you sent me an article the other day from Business Insider, and I'm like, I'm tapped. Like that's it. It's outside of my base, my paywall. Like I'm not going to read it.
And it's become like a bigger challenge.
I know, and I feel bad because I'm in the biz. Like I should pay for all the things. Maybe I
Right.
should leave this out.
Well, this is another part of this changing landscape, right? Because more models are shifting towards paid models. And it's tough. It's tough for these media companies to make a buck because traditionally they've been relying for decades on advertising dollars.
Right.
But now we're seeing, for example, streaming platforms adopt advertising models. So if you're a big company, a giant company, are you going to advertise on there or on traditional platforms? So it's something to keep in mind, and it's something we're going to continue to see evolve over the next decade. But like to your point, I think it would be great for founders to be strategic. So focus on what are the top 3 outlets that you really want to be mentioned in? Where is your audience? And then start there, because there's no reason why you would just scatter yourself and go everywhere. You need to be strategic. You need to have a plan and pick your top tier publications that you want to be mentioned in, where your prospective customers are, where your investors are, where your audience is.
Can you give me some examples of publications that you think would be worthy of like a growing tech startup? So like maybe Alex, you could answer that too, like BetaKit, or no? We don't want to shout at individual people.
I mean, you can shout. I mean, to me, it's like if you're a tech company, it's still TechCrunch to a certain degree.
Okay.
And then The Verge.
Okay.
And BetaKit for Canada. Yeah, to me, those are like the big 3.
Rosie's nodding her head. I feel very like I'm in your world. The two of you are deep in this, and I'm such an outsider to the PR comms strategy world. So I'm curiously just asking.
Yeah,
legit.
Those are the 3. I'm biased. I mean, I do write for BetaKit, so I'm slightly biased.
Oh, that's fine. Bias is welcome. We host this shit.
Douglas
so
did teach me everything I know.
Oh, that's nice.
Shout out Tron. That's a whole deep cut, but yeah.
Douglas will know.
Yeah, but so I've been in tech for way too long, and I remember when I got started, the internet existed, but there wasn't anything like today. So everything was trade publications, which is super weird. I remember, there was one dedicated just to like beer. Like for beer distributors.
Right.
And that's what, like, I worked for a beer distribution software company. And so that's where we would advertise. Do you kind of see like that coming back, like this very niche play?
I do see that coming back. And also, like, from a tech perspective, when we're talking about mainstream media, keep in mind that those journalists are often general assignment reporters. So they're covering anything and everything in a given day. Some of them have beats, but I haven't seen as many beats these days, to be honest. So when you're doing an interview with a journalist at a mainstream publication or a TV station, they're going to have very general knowledge of what you do in tech. So if you really want to get into the weeds and really dive deep into what you do, then I think that's where those trade publications have a more significant role. And we may be seeing more of those, I hope, because then we can get more in depth with the content.
Yeah. One of the things I've seen too is, if let's say you're the founder of a cybersecurity company, because we have a ton of cybersecurity companies in town. So it's a good example. Positioning your leadership team, whether it's CEO or CTO, whomever, as an expert. Are there any like tips or ways to kind of get your founder or your CEO, or if you are the founder, get yourself on a radar that if people need someone to come on, BNN and talk about cybersecurity, those kind of things?
Absolutely. It starts with the pitch. It starts with keeping your pulse on the news and what's happening in your industry. And also agility is key. So you've got to be on it. You've got to put yourself forth as a subject matter expert as soon as you can, because reporters are busy. They are working with multiple deadlines every single day. And so they want someone who's available and who's available right now and who can speak in sound bites and all of the above. But also, even if it's not an interview, even if it's an op-ed that you're pitching to a publication, it needs to read as an honest take on what's happening in the industry and not so much an advertisement for what you do. So in fact, if you look to pitch an op-ed or submit an opinion piece to a publication, 9 out of 10 times they'll get back to you and say, please do not even put your company name in this article, because we want our readers to read it and not think that it's, some form of advertisement from your company. We want this to actually be expert-related content or a piece of thought leadership. So something to keep in mind as well.
Again, not bad for the SEO, though. Bringing it all back.
We all pray at the altar of SEO gods, don't we? Yeah, it's terrible. Another question that we get to is companies. I mean, right now, a lot of companies are struggling with headcount and finances.
The vibes in the tech industry are not what they were in 2015.
I imagine, I don't remember, I worked in tech in 2000, during the crash, but I worked in tech in Florida and beer tech. So it didn't really I read stories and I'm like, I guess everyone's not doing so great right now. But I guess this is what it would have felt like if I had paid attention and lived in the valley. But I mean, I think one question comes up is what size a company do you have to be, or is there a funding level or a sales level in terms of bringing on an agency or bringing on someone internal, or how do you make that decision point of I should just get an agency and do it, or should I build out a team?
That's so hard because it's one of those things where the investment is sometimes it feels like qualitative. Do you know what I mean? Instead of quantitative of I'm putting X amount into this PR industry, but it hasn't resulted. Sometimes the sales come in indirectly from a story like that. So yeah, how do you...
I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges in communications, right? Because we can't, for example, put a QR code on every piece of coverage that a company gets. But what I would say is, in a day and age, especially with the rise of social media where companies are talking about themselves all the time, it's great to have a third party, hopefully a credible source, talking about you as well, and to help drive visibility of what you do, especially if it's in a neutral, positive tone, right? So I think that's helpful. And also you keep going back to SEO. So I want to go there too, Sasha, because that's also a thing too with media coverage. And whenever you're Googling a company and what they do, that piece of media coverage might come up along with every other piece that comes along with that search. So I wanted to put that forth. And Alex, to answer your question, of course, I feel like this is the obvious answer. It does come down to budget, but there are a lot of entrepreneurs and founders out there who can also do this themselves. If they don't have that budget for an entire team, they might be able to, once in a while put together a pitch themselves. And that's where we come in, because we can show them how to do that. And we can provide some one-on-one support as well. So there are resources out there to help no matter what size you are.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, Sasha.
I got news for you.
What? You've got good news?
Really good news.
What's the good news?
Bubble tea is back at Tech Jam. Oh. Sweet Dreams Bubble Tea. I confirmed specifically for you yesterday.
I had my first bubble tea ever in my entire life at Tech Jam in 2015.
Holy moly.
But what is Tech Jam?
Tech Jam is so much more than a career fair. It brings together talent from Waterloo region together with companies of all sizes, and they can hobnob and connect and learn about opportunities.
And so if you are one of these fast-moving, fast-growing tech employers in town, what are the opportunities for you at Tech Jam?
Oh, yeah. You can participate by purchasing a booth. So we have this huge floor with booths so talent can go from booth to booth and learn about your company and your technology and what you're doing. You can actually sponsor the event and really showcase your brand and elevate your brand throughout the entire experience. Or if you're a Waterloo Region employer, if you're a company of any size, you can attend as an employer. And we have workshops, we have keynotes, we have reverse pitches where companies actually can have the opportunity to pitch to local talent, and the talent can hear about the company, opposed to sort of the opposite. We call it a reverse pitch.
And so when is this event?
Oh, it's November 13th, and it's at Bingaman's, which is the big conference center in town. Can I just tell you, if you're interested in partnering or purchasing a booth or becoming a sponsor, how to do that?
Oh, yeah, you should definitely do that part.
Okay. It's emailing talent.support@communitech.ca. So, Alex, am I going to see you there on November 13th at Bingaman's for...
Yeah, I am going to be there. I am going to be there to get some bubble tea and also to run into a lot of my old HR and recruitment friends.
I bet you everyone in town's going to be there.
Well, I will see you there.
Yes. I remember being in university and Googling or searching how to write a press kit because I was doing freelance event planning in fashion, and I wrote, and that was a long time ago, many moons ago. So, and there were lots of resources, and that's how I figured it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll tell you my embarrassing press release story.
Oh,
which
yes.
Which is when I worked at BlackBerry, and I was a product manager, and I would do the on camera or whatever. And I had a PR person for me. And then eventually they're like, you should just come and do PR. You seem like you really enjoy it. So I made a massive career switch and went into PR. And on my first day, I got assigned a press release for some new phone. I'm like, yeah, just do that. And, quote from this person. I'm like, okay, cool. And so I wrote the press release, and then I had a space for the quote. And my manager was just like, oh, is it done? I'm like, oh, I just got to follow up with the EA for this VP to get a quote. And she's like, what? We just write the quotes. They don't actually, quotes don't come from people. And I'm what?
Honestly, that was a learning for me when I came to Communitech. I had no idea that most CEOs and most quotes are written for people, and then they at most might sign off.
I felt like I had just seen behind the curtain.
Oh, for sure.
It was, and it kind of lost some innocence. In that moment.
You had a Wizard of Oz moment.
Totally.
It was. And I was like, I can write these. And so then I wrote them, and then I'd see the press release come out. I'm like, that was me. I wrote that.
I also had no idea, but this is again, not my background. That press release I wrote for that event was pretty much the extent of my PR career. Alex, I do like the tidbit about your career move, about how it's what your dad did, right?
My mom.
Your mom.
Yeah. So my mom was the public information manager, was a civilian role for Palm Beach Police.
So we are all, the moral of the story is we are all doomed to become our parents.
We are completely doomed.
Rosie, I have a question for you though.
Yes.
So specifically for the founder community that we service here at Communitech, what sort of PR direction, communications guidance do we offer our community and our members?
We offer a lot. We can help you with everything from polishing your press release. We can help you identify stories within your startup, no matter what stage you're at along your journey. If you have an event coming up, we can help you with a strategy around media outreach and how to get some visibility around that. We also help with crisis communications and issues management. Sometimes you don't know you need it until you do. So we can help you be proactive around that depending on what's in the pipeline for you and your company. And one-on-one support if there's any questions that you have. Like you said, Sasha, do I need a press kit? How do I start? How do I put myself out there? We can help.
So I learned some lessons in PR when I had to put my reading glasses on because I'm blind.
old.
When from my thing, so I want to kind of run these by you, and you tell me if these are good or not, like good advice or terrible advice. So, the first one I was told is that journalists are not my friend.
Not until you want them to cover your story.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street, I would say. But yes, I
Who
think
told you that?
The PR training that I got at BlackBerry. But it was
Journalists
basically
are
that,
not your
like,
friend.
they're not your friend because the thing is, like, you kind of get lulled because you want them to cover your news.
Right.
So then, especially, like, if you're at a big company, like 300-400 people, you've got, a couple million in ARR, you're probably, stuff's happening. And they might have other questions for you, not based on what you're trying to talk to them about. So, but then you want to be like, they're like, oh, is there anything else going on? And you're like, well, I really want them to cover this story. So I'll be like, well, we might have something coming up in the future. And they're like, you can't do that. So it's like that. Don't get lulled into I love all journalists.
Like
I'm just saying they're not your friends.
Can I rephrase it to, they might not have your best interests at heart. Like they have their own priorities. Rosie, over to you.
I want to further rephrase and say, when you are engaged in a media interview, manage your expectations. You will most likely be quoted alongside other people who may not have the same perspective that you will be sharing in that article or piece of coverage. And you will 100% be edited. So there will be some expectations to be managed. And you have to keep that in mind. And I think that's why during an interview, going back to your key messages is super helpful.
Yeah, we were taught that all the time. Redirecting back.
What are your other things?
Well, the other one is kind of along the same vein, and we had talked about this earlier, which is an interview is never time for original thought.
No, exactly. That's what we just said about the key messages.
Yeah, key messages all the time.
You're already on the spot. You're already feeling like you're being grilled, so be prepared.
Yeah. I've had some friends who were like, hey, I got a new job, and I've got to go in and resign, and I'm really nervous because either they think it's going to go badly, or one person was like, oh, my manager's going to try to make me stay and offer me other stuff. And I was like, well, what's your message for why you're leaving? And they're like, well, it's a better opportunity and there's a growth potential into this and the money's better. I'm like,
stick to it.
Just reiterate that. And you ever you've probably had this done to you, which is you're interviewing someone and they just keep on doing it. So then it looks weird because the person being interviewed, the interviewee, is not answering the question, but they're not. They're just going back to their points again and again and again.
Right. They keep bridging. It comes across as inauthentic. This is an art, right? Because you're trying to strike that balance between reiterating what you want to say and those key messages while also coming across as an authentic spokesperson. Yeah. It's not easy.
That's the thing we need to practice when we have a dog.
Being authentic?
Well, no, being authentic. I mean, dogs can tell, right?
They can tell. If they start growling at you, maybe think about rewriting.
Well, and the last one, which I always found super interesting, was to never start a reply with no. So if someone says, is your company failing? You don't start with no, we're not. You just say, we're doing this to improve sales, or whatever your message happens to be. Or did your company leak a whole bunch of data? You don't say, no, we didn't leak a whole bunch of data. It's, we have security protocols in place and we've contacted customers who may have been affected, that kind of stuff.
I agree with that point. I also want to add to that point and say it's never a great idea to say no comment either, right? You always want to have something to say in response.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one. And that comes back to your main points, right?
I got a good one, a good tip, which is I learned this from my mentor / from my old job, Julie. Love Julie. She said, never feel like you have to solve in the room. Like if you don't know the answer, you can always say, I'm coming back. I don't know. I'm going to find out the person who does know, and I will get back to you.
Yes, you are more in control than you think, especially when it's not a live interview. Like you're not on CNN with Anderson Cooper, hopefully, or maybe you are, and that's super exciting. But if it's, a recorded interview or you're not live, you have the opportunity to rephrase. You can ask, like, can I answer that again? Or can I give that another shot? 9 out of 10 times, they're going to say yes, because they're putting together a story. They want you to sound good. Like they want to put together a quality piece of content as well. So I would agree with that.
Nice. I'm coming with something today.
No, I like that. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. Don't have to solve in the room. It's like, for me in my job, people come to me with a question or advice, and I have to very thoughtfully say often. Like the first thing that comes to mind is probably not the best solution. So like, give me a few days and let me think about it and work on it.
I mean, that's advice for anything.
Yeah.
Really. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Be the person who helps. And then if you can't help right away, say, I'll help you later.
Yeah. Let me think about it.
Okay. So kind of switching gears a little bit. So you worked at CTV for a long time, anchor. Kind of like, what is that experience like externally from Communitech? Like seeing, and like the kind of, you had an anchor's desk view for the tech industry kind of changing within Kitchener. Like, is there anything that kind of comes to mind, or like kind of what's your view on that? Like as it's changed a lot over the last decade.
Yeah, and the media landscape.
Yeah.
It has. I think it's refreshing because I think, if you look at even a decade ago, tech did seem like this very niche thing. Now everybody's talking about it. Like AI is mentioned in the news every other day now, whereas 10 years ago that wasn't the case. So I do see a lot of tech stories bleeding into mainstream media, which is amazing because technology shapes our lives every single day, whether we like it or not. There's no problem that tech can't solve. So why aren't we talking about it more? And why can't it be part of our mainstream culture, our mainstream media, and our mainstream conversations? It's huge.
Going back to those like 5 things that viewers care about. They care about their health. There's so much, health space with aging boomers. Like there's so much opportunity that's ripe for disruption. And having, I've spoke to Stacey Sobering, who runs Fast Track Health program here. And she said, every province in Canada delivers healthcare completely differently, and the funding is different, and how the hospitals all work is different. And so they offer all of this programming to help you sort of connect with and be able to speak to all of these healthcare providers at the same time. And it's like what affects everybody every day, your health or like your parents' health. And
yeah.
I don't really know if that was a concise thought. I'm not going to lie.
It was a concise thought. Yeah.
I've also seen, we have the stories about the restructuring, the changes, the crazy impact that the pandemic had on the tech sector. So yes, there's that. But I also see a lot of stories about how tech is helping us. So the news, we often see a lot of problems. There's a problem everywhere you look. And I love how there are so many stories about how tech can come in to help solve those problems. And I love those stories because you walk away feeling good. You feel like, okay, there's a solution to this. And look at all of these amazing, smart humans creating these incredible solutions that'll make our day-to-day lives so much easier.
That's an uplifting. I like that.
Yeah.
I want to be uplifted on a kind of dreary Thursday.
Yeah, you're great, Rosie. You're such a natural.
You guys are great.
Rosie, what else is on your very well prepared? Look at
you guys gosh.
Each have pieces of paper. Look how many pieces of paper I have in
now
front
I
of
wish
me.
this was a video podcast.
No, I practice what I preach. So yeah, I brought a cheat sheet, but I feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
We have covered a lot of ground. No, it's PR to me, and I worked in it. Again, I'm biased, but it's such an important part of like the founder journey, right? Because you've got to tell this story, your story of how you or your co-founder, or you by yourself discovered a problem, the solution you came up with, the assistance you got along the way, your first customers, first sales, all that. Like it goes into this story that you can use forever almost.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Did that make sense?
Yeah, I want to kind of like add to it. So what you're saying is like you just have to find a way to talk about your product, your story, who you are, and why it matters. You just have to way to package it up.
You have to answer the so what. Why should someone care? So great, you know what you do and why it matters. So what?
I'm going to call the episode that.
So what?
So what? PR 101. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right title. I was going to do I was trying to work Film at 11 into this, but.
What's Film at 11?
Film at 11.
Another reference I don't know?
It's an old, like when they used to shoot the news on film because it was pre-video, and then they'd have to process it. So the person would be like, fire at the old mill, film at 11, because they'd have to wait to get the film ready to show it at 11 on the news. Nope.
back in the last
Is
century.
is that old? That's an old.
I think so. Norm always makes the joke. He's like, we've got plenty of film in the camera. And he laughs at himself. I know, it's great. He's got the best dad jokes.
It's Norm's birthday tomorrow.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, I guess, I don't know when this episode's going to air.
Happy birthday,
His
Norm
birthday's
Claire.
August 9th,
Aw.
whenever this episode airs. So maybe travel back in time and wish him a happy birthday.
I have a question for both of you. What are some great free resources for tech news that you would say? I've got a couple.
To follow?
Yeah, or like, so I get all my news from podcasts.
Oh, that's weird.
Really?
I don't get it much from a podcast,
Well,
really.
I consider NPR also kind of like a perma podcast, just
Yeah.
happening in my house. So I think the Pivot podcast covers a lot of tech news and business news, which is a great one with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. And then I listen to, The Daily is a good one. And Today Explained is another great daily podcast, although they cover all news, not just tech news. Do you guys have any other resources you can think of?
So, you know, I'm a newsletter fan.
Oh, hit me with your newsletters.
So I do read The Hustle. Comes out
Okay.
every day.
Yep.
HubSpot owns it. It didn't change much. It's
Is
still
the
pretty good.
hustle tech related or just news related?
It's tech
Okay.
news, and then like industry,
Yep.
which is really good. Then I also read, what's the other one? Oh, Yahoo Finance. Now it's finance, so it covers like everybody.
Sure.
But like the most valuable companies right now happen to be like tech companies, so it's a lot of tech news. Also, sorry, Casey Newton's. This is a big Casey Newton shout out.
I know. He's so great.
Platformer. At the end of like he has like the main part of his newsletter, and then there's all this like industry and tech and then funny social media posts, which I find super useful.
And this is very exciting announcement. Rosie, you're going to join us for every podcast recording. Sit in the corner and start waving your hands wildly when we say things we're not supposed to say.
No, that's
You're
not
hired.
what's happening here.
Oh, okay. I think there was one other one that I read. Shoot darn.
Think about it.
With the hustle and platformer.
Can't think of anything else.
Do I read anything else? Oh, you know what? I know what it was. I use Google Alerts.
Oh,
Yeah, so just set up a Google Alert on the topics. Like,
that's smart.
I mean, you set up one on cybersecurity, you're going to get a ton of stories on cybersecurity.
That's
but
true.
like I have a couple clients, and then I run things on like the topics they do, and then I'm like, hey, here, like when we're trying to pitch stuff, I'm like, hey, this company's talking about this. We could pitch a story, like you said, like tangentially along this.
That's so smart. Simple tips. Good tips.
I mean, I guess Communitech has a newsletter.
We have Your Month in Tech. That gives you a regional, you can sign up for it on communitech.ca. And that gives you really just the headlines and from our own internal communications, but also what's happening in the region in the tech space. Are there any other newsletters or anything else that?
We do have newsletters that go out to founders, startups, and scale-ups. And we also post stories on tech news. We have our blog. So lots to read and stay up to date on.
I also just follow Terry Pender to see what he's writing about in town.
Oh, Terry at the record.
Yeah. Actually, that was my last question for you. So Terry
Oh.
Pender has a sandwich named after him at the Yeti.
Oh,
Okay. So,
what's the sandwich called?
Terry Pender.
Okay.
Named after Terry Pender.
Okay, sorry.
It's a Terry
It's
Pender
like
sandwich.
the Arnold Palmer, but sandwich form.
In sandwich form. So what would the Rosie Del Campo dish be?
What
and
would the
where?
Rosie sandwich be?
Or it doesn't have to be a sandwich. It could be any, like, it could be like I don't know. Like, I guess a sandwich is kind of the common thing. Okay, say it's a sandwich, and then where?
Actually, can I go with a pasta dish?
You can go-
Because
100% you can go with a
it
pasta
could be
dish.
like
Proud
the-
Italian?
Yes,
Okay.
my heritage. So it would be the Rosie del Carbonara,
Oh my god, you've gotten this
maybe at Ennio's.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome. Now we have to make that happen.
Oh my god, I want that. You got to bring it in.
We shall.
Next work potluck.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank
We
you both.
appreciate
It was such an honor to be in the podcast studio with you. Really enjoy listening to you guys, and all the best.
Oh, thanks, Rosie.
See, all the talk about the Rosie Del Carbonara. Now I'm kind of hungry.
I know it is
I mean,
lunchtime.
it is, yeah, quarter
11.
to 12.
Rosie Del Campo, she's so great. I work with her every day, and she's an
The
angel.
whole time I'm going to be like, and back to you, Rosie. Because, you know, it's.
I know. When when she started, I totally looked up her CTV News anchoring on YouTube.
I do wonder, and like, not that it, like this is like old Alex, in my day. But like I grew up.
I like learning about history, New York Times.
No, but just like when I, growing up, it was like early days of cable still. Like there's maybe 25 channels on cable, and then you had your local news, like your local whatever, and the news would be on, and like you knew these news personalities, morning and lunchtime news and evening news, and whenever you would see them in real life, it was like, oh, they're on TV, and like as you mentioned, like my mom was the public information manager for Palm Beach Police. And so she knew all of the people, like newspaper journalists and radio and TV, and they'd be like in the station sometimes, and I'd be there like after camp, and I'd like walk over and like hang out in her office, and like the anchor of the news would come in, and they'd just be like bullshitting. And I'm like, you know them? Like it's, and then so like I fanboy out with Rosie every time.
I know. I am also such a fan. I think that's so interesting having when you're young and you're exposed to an industry like that just organically through what your parents do for a living, and then it sort of demystifies it. So when you have the opportunity to get involved as an adult, it doesn't feel so scary. Like my mom was a production designer in the film industry in Toronto for 40 years. And I grew up on film sets, and now as an adult, like working in marketing and working with any sort of production, I'm so not intimidated by like a production space, because it just seems such a natural space for me. Just having grown up knowing like don't make any noise or you will get kicked out of here.
Yeah, it's a big one. Quiet on set.
Quiet on the set.
Yeah.
So,
well, actually, we do need one of those lights outside the studio.
We do. People are. When they walk by it, it's quite loud. Okay, I'm going to do my Communitech spiel.
Well, I was going to actually ask you during the one bit, and I was going to be like, so Sasha,
okay,
what is Communitech?
So let me try to just tie this all in together.
I had a good segue.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, because Rosie was talking about like what we offer founders.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd be like, and who are we?
Yes. Oh, it would have been nice right in the episode. So Alex, let me tell you a little bit about Communitech, just in case the listeners, maybe this is their first time tuning in. Communitech is an innovation hub based in Waterloo Region, right in downtown Kitchener. Communitech has been around for almost 27 years. Our anniversary is coming right up, and we are a nonprofit that helps tech companies in the Toronto Waterloo corridor start, grow, and succeed with capital, access to markets, helping build their teams with talent support and community. We throw really fun parties and breakfasts and events. A couple great events coming up. In October, we have Techtoberfest presents Investor House in downtown Kitchener at their Walpur Hotel. And then we also have in November, we have Tech Jam, which is more than a career fair, taking place in Bigamins Conference Center. Tech Jam and Techtoberfest are both sort of Communitech legendary flagship events that we've been running for a long time, and they're back this fall.
Well, and Tech Jam is back for the first time
since March 2020.
I don't count that one because that was that was online.
No, it was in person. Trust me, I was working here, and we were writing and creating signs for the day before the event saying, using this new phrase, socially distance, and consider a fist bump instead of a handshake. And it was real.
Yeah.
And then the whole world shut down like the next week.
Okay. Well, I'm excited for it to come back.
Tech Jam's coming back. So.
I keep on trying to get an answer on whether there's a bubble tea bar or not, but I haven't heard. So I'll find that out later. Shout out Sweet Dreams.
And if any tech founders want to learn more about how we can support them, they can go over to communitech.ca or follow us on socials at Communitech. And if any partners, which are organizations of all sizes that want to plug into the world of Waterloo Region tech innovation, they can come on over to communitech.ca/partners as well and learn more about opportunities.
And we have a whole bunch of episodes coming up. Luckily, Communitech has a deep roster of experts across everything.
Oh, yeah, this is great. We're reeling in everybody.
So the scheduling of it is kind of like based on people's availability and a bunch of other things, and topical if it's stuff happening. But if there's ever a topic that you really want to get an episode on sooner than later, you can leave a comment. If you're listening on Spotify, open that mobile app and you can leave a comment right on the podcast that you're listening to right now. And if you're not listening on Spotify on your phone, you can also follow us on social media at Communitech on all the platforms and leave a comment there and just say, hey, we'd like to hear an episode on SEO, Where's your SEO expert? Or we want to hear an episode on intellectual property, cybersecurity, medtech. There's a whole bunch of stuff.
AI.
Yeah. We did that quantum one.
That's true.
So we could do an AI one.
Deeply technical one on AI.
I want to do an AI one that's not generative AI, but that's what do they call the other one? And it's like research AI. So it's going through. It's like kind of like the medical side
Like
of things,
articling,
right?
kind of.
No, like where it goes through like data and data sets and finds patterns and
Big
stuff.
data.
Not just generating LinkedIn posts with emojis. The worst.
Not just pulling the background off your Photoshop files.
Oh, that's super
That's very
helpful.
handy.
Yeah.
I have to say, all the Adobe generative AI stuff is so fun to play with.
Except for the fingers. Can't do it.
Can't.
Just can't. It's like
It's a dead giveaway.
It's like fingers, man. I can't do that shit, man. I'm out.
It'll get it in like a few years.
Anyways, thanks for listening.
Thanks. Yep. We'll catch you next time.